Time, the recent offseason has a case to be one of the most busiest and most exciting offseasons in NBA history. And with the 2023-2024 NBA season set to begin next week, already October 25th, Philippine time, it is no surprise to see a lot of fans hyped up for the new season. Well, who's not? Joining us right now to have an all-out conversation about what to expect for the upcoming NBA season, our basketball podcaster, Leigh Ellis, and sports writer Josh Planos. Leigh is joining us live via Zoom from his home in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, Josh still coming to us live via Zoom as well from Lincoln, Nebraska. It's 7:30 a.m. in Nebraska, while 8:30 a.m. in Atlanta, Georgia. Good morning to you both. Good evening from Manila. Great to be seeing your faces again. And I mean it, really.
Well, last time I saw your face, I was sitting right next to you in that studio there, Andre.
Exactly.
And it was a fantastic experience. So hopefully I'll come back there one day.
Yeah, and the goal is to have this guy come with you to Manila. Great to have you back, Josh. Looking sharp as always, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me, Andre. Let's talk some ball.
Well, here we go. NBA season, just a couple of days away. That's the reason why we're having both of you. The recent offseason was one of the busiest offseasons of all time. A lot of blockbuster deals left and right. Let's focus first on the West. Okay, there are a lot of things to talk about, but I'll start with, okay, Leigh, which transaction surprised you the most?
Well, I guess the fact that Bradley Beal is going to the Phoenix Suns because it really didn't cost them anything to get him. I think that's, it's not as necessarily a surprise that they got him. It's just they didn't have to give up anything of note. Of course, they traded out Chris Paul, but who's moved on to the Golden State Warriors. But that really was more that they were done with Chris Paul anyway. So it wasn't like that really cost them anything. And Bradley Beal, I mean, his career was just wasting away in Washington. They weren't making the playoffs. He's a very good scorer. He'd been an all-star a couple of times. But now he's actually joining a team with legitimate championship aspirations. I mean, with Kevin Durant obviously there and Devin Booker, they've also made the recent trade where DeAndre Ayton has been moved out and Yusuf Nurkic has come in. So they've made some big moves there, Phoenix, because ultimately they're in that win now mode. They made the finals a couple of years ago, of course, against the Milwaukee Bucks, led 2-0 in that series before losing in 6. And since then, they haven't been really close to getting back there. They lost, of course, last season to the Denver Nuggets in the second round there in 5 games. So they really went out, got another big name player. Now, Beal's a very good offensive player. He's a fantastic shooter and scorer. We know that. I'm not sure if that necessarily addressed, though, where the Phoenix Suns needed help, which was, for me, on more of the defensive end. However, having said that, the game is about scoring points, and the Suns, with those 3 weapons out there now, Durant, Booker and Bradley Beal, I mean, they could score 130 points a night. So you might not necessarily need a whole lot of help defensively if you're just running up the score against your opponents.
Well, they're a problem. I'm looking at the averages, points per game of these 3 last 5 seasons since 2018-2019. KD, number 6, 27.8 per game. Bradley Beal at 9, 27 per game. Book, 26.6 per game in the last 5 seasons, and all those 3 in the top 10. Josh, a couple of years ago, Phoenix, if we talk about Phoenix, they're not even a conversation to be a championship contender. And then they had a great bubble. I remember that with Book going crazy. And then they made it to the finals 2 years ago, facing Milwaukee, losing to Giannis and company. And now this legit big 3 is a 3-headed scoring monster. Your thoughts about this? We obviously heard it from Leigh. It's going to be a problem, but do you think this will work? Remember, just one ball. And none of them really are like natural point guards. But those 3 scoring problem, what do you think?
Well, like Leigh said, there's really not going to be an issue scoring the basketball, but there's only one ball, and you need to play on defense. And I think as part of the package, right, getting Yusuf Nurkic, that's a concern for me, right? I don't think Yusuf Nurkic had a strong season at all last season. Now you're tasking him with defending the paint, defending the rim. Of course you have some supplemental help there, but to a degree, offensive firepower might overcompensate for some of those defensive deficiencies. But there are still some questions about this team. I would not consider them a top 3 team in terms of championship aspirations, but like you mentioned, Andre, it's all relative. And within a very short amount of time, this team really emerged as a team that had never experienced much, if any, postseason success. And now it's expected that they are going to compete for a title. And when you add that type of star power, that is always going to be the expectation. So I do think that this team will take a step forward. I think it will take a time to incorporate these new pieces, particularly on the defensive end. And those are really the questions that will need to be answered if this team actually wants to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy at the end of the season. Is what's gonna how are you gonna get things done on the defensive end? Because offensively, we know these guys can score. We know these guys can fill it up. They have the star power, but defensively, can you lock somebody down come playoff time? That'll be something that they need to answer throughout the year.
Let's not forget, you got Frank Vogel, first-year head coach for Phoenix there, trying to make it work. And also, we know he won a title with the Lakers. Let's talk about La La Land, still in the West. Of course, talk about King James, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, if healthy. Definitely a problem, a contender. They won a title back in the bubble. They were able to bring back Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura still there, Jared Vanderbilt, who was a good defensive presence, also good addition last year, D'Angelo Russell. Then you added quality role players. You got Gabe Vincent from Miami, Christian Wood, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes. Lee, is this going to be the team that LeBron finally can take it all the way and win the chip again before he retires in a few years or so?
Well, it's funny. People are talking about the Lakers, but they made the conference finals last season. They just got swept by the Denver Nuggets. So they were a good team last season. And now those complementary pieces you mentioned, I think, are probably better. I think Gabe Vincent's a fantastic pickup for them. Christian Wood is one of those players. He's got the talent. He's got the potential. But can he keep it together? That's, I think, been a question throughout his career. Much the same with D'Angelo Russell. At times, D'Angelo Russell has looked like a fantastic player. He was an all-star, of course, in Brooklyn. But his shot selection late in games tends to still be his Achilles heel. So as always with a LeBron team, it comes down to LeBron and then now Anthony Davis, had some things to say in preseason about the Denver Nuggets, who were celebrating, obviously, that they won the championship and swept the Lakers in the conference finals. But Anthony Davis, he's just got to stay on the floor. That's going to be the question that I think remains all throughout the season, because it feels like he's on the court for 2 or 3 weeks and then he tends to be down for a week or two. So if he can stay healthy and stay consistent, I think the key here is for the Lakers, they've got to have a really strong regular season to get that home court advantage, because I don't think the Denver Nuggets are going to be any weaker than they were last season. I think they're still going to probably be, in fact, they are, for me, the favorite in the Western Conference. LeBron's getting up there in years. He's still a fantastic player. We know that. But I don't think he has quite that same power and ability that we've seen in years gone by, where he can just drag any other 4 guys to as many wins as he wants. We saw that. I mean, they got swept by the Nuggets. So I think the Lakers did improve on their periphery there. But some of those guys, I mentioned, Christian Wood, Russell, of course, was there before the end of last season. They just haven't proved their consistency for me to make the Lakers a better team than the Denver Nuggets right now.
We're running out of time. I still have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers, Luka, Kyrie's back there in Dallas, and of course, CP3, now part of Golden State. What a game earlier. Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things, winning it against Sacramento. Let's take a really quick break. We'll continue our all-out discussion after a timeout. Stay with us. We're still discussing with Leigh Ellis and Josh Planos about the upcoming NBA season. But before that, since we have you back here on the show, you know the drill. It's time to look at our quiz question of the day. Who are the 4 players in NBA history to have a quadruple double? No Googling. Josh and Lee, we've got the correct answer for you later on the show. Stay tuned to Sports Ask only here on CNN Philippines, where we go all out for the day's top sports stories. We'll be right back. But Sports Ask only here on CNN Philippines, and still with us today, basketball podcaster Leigh Ellis and sports writer Josh Planos. Josh, let's talk really quick. I know we're supposed to talk about the East now, but of course, the Golden State Warriors just won a chip a few seasons ago. They acquired the services of Chris Paul. They did let go of Jordan Poole, but CP3, of course, one of the smartest point guards, one of the best point guards, cerebral point guards that we've seen in the NBA. How do you think he will impact this team? Will he come off the bench? I think he will, with the second unit, with Kuminga, Moody, and those guys. And do you see this Golden State team, of course, with the last run, trying to milk with Steph, Clay, Draymond, How far will this Warriors team make it?
Assuming everyone stays healthy, I think this could be a championship contending team. Roster-wise, I still have some questions as far as the front court is concerned.
Yep.
You're putting a lot of pressure, right, on your interior to stay healthy, and certainly there's no expectation, right, that Chris Paul is going to stay healthy for the entire season. The guy is 38 years old, right? So I do think the second unit is probably a better fit for him as he learns this new system, and he can take the young guys under his wing, right? He can get Kuminga involved. He can be the point guard of the second unit. That's still a very desirable role, a very much needed role, as we saw with Jordan Poole trying to essentially run the show when Steph was off the court. It didn't always look as fluid as Steve Kerr would have liked. So I think that's a real opportunity for Chris Paul to again enjoy the twilight of his career and potentially win a championship. But that's quite the ego check for someone who is a first ballot Hall of Famer, someone who has never come off the bench. That's a lot to ask of someone. So it'll be quite, the coaching exercise for Steve Kerr if he can get all of these egos under one roof and, get them involved and active for one another. But Chris Paul coming off the bench would be a really good place to start if this team wants to win a championship, which, every team does this time of year.
Let's talk about the East now. Of course, Milwaukee making waves, letting go of Jrue Holiday and a couple of pieces, but getting Damian Lillard. This will be the second time in history having two players previous year averaging 30 points a game. Lillard averaged 32 points per game last season. Giannis 31.1. Leigh, your thoughts of they do let go of a defensive guard and Jrue Holiday, but you get Dame time in return. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to be in the minority, and I think it was an okay move, but I think they are going to miss Jrue Holiday badly. I really do. And look, you had to give up something to get Lillard, of course, and they kind of swooped in there from the Miami Heat. We all thought Lillard was going to the Miami Heat eventually. Yeah. So the Bucks get the good player there, but the thing about Jrue Holiday is, he really complemented Giannis by being, the offensively, we knew what he could do. He wasn't going to go and get you 30 points like Lillard can. But defensively, you just knew Jrue Holiday was tough. And that's one thing that Lillard has not been throughout his career, has been a super tough defender. So the Bucks are going to probably score a lot more. And look, it's going to be a pretty devastating 1-2 punch there with Lillard and Giannis. But I just wonder a little bit around the other end of whether or not that's going to cost them, because I just felt Jrue Holiday was such a key piece. I think sometimes, it's not necessarily about acquiring the best talent. It's about acquiring the right fits. And that's why the Bucks went on to win the championship a couple of years ago, because Jrue Holiday was such a good fit. Now you're asking Lillard at this stage of his career to really sort of adjust his game and be the number two guy when he's been number one for, predominantly his entire career, maybe even maybe for his whole career. So it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period here for the Bucks. But as long as Giannis is out there on the court, they remain the favorite in the East for me. But I just wonder, come playoff time, if they are really going to miss the defensive effort that Jrue Holiday gave them, and whether or not Lillard can compensate that on the offensive end.
Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers before we talk about the Boston Celtics, of course, with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis and where Jrue Holiday eventually ended up with. It will be a deadly team. Philly, Josh, your thoughts on this James Harden saga? And, I think James Harden is just one move away from not landing a team in the NBA. Your thoughts on this? And do you think James Harden will be there suiting up with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and the Sixers come NBA season? Go ahead.
He has 35 million reasons to show up. So I think he will ultimately show up to collect his contract. I think it's unfortunate that this has become an annual NBA tradition, is what's going wrong with the Philadelphia 76ers. Last year we were talking about Ben Simmons. This year it's James Harden. So who knows? Maybe next year it's Maxey. But I really do think that the 76ers have a lot to be excited about if they can get, all of the personalities and the off the court drama in check. I really like Maxey. I'd expect him to take a huge leap this year. Of course, you have the reigning MVP in Joel Embiid, who's working out a new sneaker deal as we speak. But I do think 76ers clearly have a ceiling on what they can accomplish. I don't see this as a championship contender, but there are a lot of teams that aren't, right? And hopefully they can put the James Harden drama to the side and get back to basketball.
Of course, the Boston Celtics also made a great offseason. As I said, they did lose Marcus Smart, who's a really good defensive player. But you get Kristaps Porzingis, you get Drew Holiday. Your thoughts, Leigh, on this Boston team? Is this a team that, I think I have Boston, Milwaukee up there, probably Boston a little bit the favorites, but your thoughts on the additions that Boston made? Of course, you still have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and those guys. Al Horford, Derek White.
Yeah, no, look, I think the addition there of Drew Holiday really does make it a very good summer for them. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis, he's an incredibly talented offensive player, but he's kind of as well. He was in Washington last season. Things didn't work out there in Dallas. We know he can score, but he has trouble staying on the floor. But the Celtics obviously believe in him. They gave him that 2-year extension as well. So this wasn't just like some sort of salary cap trade or anything like that. They believe that Porzingis can help spread the floor, open it up a little bit here for Tatum and Brown. And I think he can do that. It's just whether or not he is going to be consistent himself, because we saw him in New York where it looked like he was the next big thing. And since then, his career has kind of fallen away. But if the Boston Celtics really believe in him and enough to invest in him that long-term, or not long-term, but, like a guaranteed couple of extra years on his contract, then they obviously feel that that's what they've been missing these last couple of seasons. Now, Marcus Smart, I'm still sort of surprised they traded him away, because he was more than just a defensive player on that team. He was the heart and soul. He was the locker room guy. And they just basically dumped him to the Memphis Grizzlies. So, but in the end, again, they would have been very, very happy to scoop up Drew Holiday, knowing that he wasn't on the table earlier in the season, because, again, he does replace the defensive grit that Marcus Smart brings to that team. And now, as well, I think Drew Holiday is going to be super motivated to try to, stick it to the Milwaukee Bucks too if they get a chance in the playoffs.
Imagine having Boston and Milwaukee in a best of 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Man, get your popcorn. Okay, I know it's still too early, but I have to put the pressure on both of you. Who do you think will win next year's MVP award? And it's still got a million more questions for both Josh and Leigh. Plus, they still have to answer a quiz question of the day. All that and more when we return. You're watching Sports Ask Only here on CNN Philippines. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. And we're back. Thank you for joining us. Still with us today, basketball podcaster Leigh Ellis and sports writer Josh Planos. Before we focus on the players, before we go to our quiz question of the day, my last question before the break: who do you think will win MVP this season? Is it Joel Embiid again? Is it Jokic? Is it maybe Steph or Resurrection? You have Giannis. Who do you think, Josh?
I'm going with Jason Tatum.
Wow.
I think it's going to be the best player and the best team. I think Boston is going to have the best record at the end of the day, and I think that there's going to be a natural hesitancy to award someone who has previously won the honor. So I think this could be the year. It would require a stiff leap, but I do think Tatum is qualified for it.
Solid pick, and JT. I like it. How about you, Leigh?
I think they're going to go back to Jokic. He got robbed last season, I think. And the fact that he went on to win the championship, I think, is now the voters are going to be like, yeah, you know what? We should have given it to him last season. He was the best player. Let's make up for it this season. The voting sometimes does get a little bit funky there. I look, no disrespect to Joel Embiid. He was fantastic last season. I don't think he was the MVP. I think it was more that Jokic had won a couple but hadn't won a championship at that point. The fact that he has now, I think it clearly shows Jokic is the best player in the NBA, and I think he's going to win his 3rd in 4 seasons.
Well, before I let you both go, let's find out the answer to our quiz question of the day. You know the drill. Who are the 4 players in NBA history to have a quadruple double? Josh.
I remember Olajuwon and Robinson doing it. That's so I guess I got half.
That's 2. How about you, Leigh? Save Josh. Name the other 2.
Yeah, I think Alvin Robertson got one too, didn't he, in 1987?
Correct.
San Antonio Spurs.
Correct.
And the 4th one was recent. I think I'm off.
I'll stop you there.
No, it was Draymond Green.
I'll stop you there.
It was Draymond Green, wasn't it?
Let's find out the answers. I'm not sure. Let's find out. I don't know too, but let's take a look. The correct answers are: is it Draymond? Okay, so according to this, it's Nate Thurmond, Alvin Robertson, the Dream, Hakeem Olajuwon, and the Admiral, David Robinson. 3 out of 4, fellas. Good job. Thank you again. We'll be speaking to you. Yes, we'll be speaking to you both as the season starts. Thank you once again for your time. That was basketball podcaster Leigh Ellis joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, and sports writer Josh Planos joining us from Lincoln, Nebraska. We've reached today's finish line. Join us again live at 8:30 p.m. tomorrow for today's top sports stories. I'm Andre Felix. Thank you for tuning in to Sports Desk only here on CNN Philippines. Stay tuned. The final word with Rico. He's on. Coming up next.